Hi everyone, this is your host Ernie signing in, and welcome to It Only Happens to Ernie podcast. Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. So, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you. Genuinely, thank you so much to everyone who listened to the first episode, who messaged me, reach out, give me feedback, and just support me in any way. It really does mean so much to me. And honestly, right now, all the feedback matters to me, the good, the bad, the constructive, all of it, because I can't fix or improve something if I don't know what needs work. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, I'm learning as I go. I am I am all of my everything. I'm the editor, I'm the graphic designer, I'm the producer, I'm trying to figure out the audio, the troubleshooter, everything. I'm doing it all. And so there's definitely still things I'm learning, especially, just starting out right now. So, with that being said, I also want to apologize a little for the audio quality in the last episode. I very clearly did not know what I was doing, but hopefully, with each episode, I'll get a little better, a little more comfortable, and a little more confident with all of this. So, this week episode, this one was hard for me. Not just because of the content, but because I spend so much time troubleshooting everything. Every single day, I would sit down and think, like, okay, this is the day, I'm finally doing it to record this episode. And then something would go wrong. I would get overwhelmed, or I would end up spending the whole time just fix something instead. And so, here I am again on a beautiful Saturday, Sunday morning. I'm gonna try, hopefully, it will be the last time I try to record this episode. And I do want this to be weekly. I'm gonna try really hard, you guys, to come out with this every Tuesday. So, anyways, but aside from all the technical stuff, this episode was hard for me because I kept asking myself, like, how do you fit 29 years of your life into one conversation? And that's a little dramatic, but how do you tell a story that big, that layer, and that emotional, and somehow keep it in a way that people would actually sit and listen to without turning into like a 2-hour episode? And with me as well, I mean I'm a creator of this, but I'm also a consumer. I also listen to podcasts, and I know how most people probably listen. It's usually in the car, on the way to work, or like while getting ready, or those any random quiet moments that you can find, when you want to hear something. I understand people only have so much time. So realistically, I only have your attention for maybe 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes if I'm lucky. So I knew I needed to break this story up. I could absolutely sit here and talk about this for hours and hours easily, but I also know that not everything needs to be said in one episode. Some story needs room, some story needs different parts. So for this episode, I want to focus mainly on the first 12 years of my life before I moved to the States. And then the next episode, I'll talk more about the years after moving here. Not every single detail, not every little things, but just the key part, the part that shaped me and the part that explained where I came from at my core. Because a lot of who I am really started there. It started in Thailand. It started with my childhood. It started with my family. It started with my culture. And honestly, it started with my relationship with my mom. So let's get into it. The more I thought about how I wanted to tell this story, the more I realized I need to start with my mom. If you know me at all in real life, you probably already know that my relationship with my mom is very complicated. It always has been. There's obviously like a lot of love there, right? But there's also a lot of pain, a lot of just history. There's always been so many layers, so many roller coaster in our relationship. But It wasn't always the way it is now. My parents got divorced when I was 3 years old. Now, I, and this is why it makes it hard. I want to be careful here because this is my perspective. This is my memory, and this is how I experience it as their daughter. My parents has their own story, like my mom has her story, my biological father has his own story. But what I can talk about is what I saw, what I remember, and what it felt like to me growing up. Their relationship was abusive. There was a lot of emotional abusive, some physical abusive, a lot of fighting, a lot of like instability, and a lot of fear. And honestly, as sad as it is, one of my first memory as a child was the fight that ended their marriage for good. You know how like people sometimes ask, "What's your first memory?" That's mine. Like looking back now, it's heartbreaking, it's traumatic. It's definitely not the kind of first memory a child should have. But at the same time, I think it explains so much about who I became. Because when I think about that little version of Ernie, just scared and helpless, trying to understand what was going on, I realized how much she shaped into the person that I am now. And I think a lot of my hyper awareness came from her. A lot of my need to keep the peace came from her. A lot of like my instinct to protect people came from her. And a lot of, I think, my people pleasing came from her as well. From that point on, I was team mom. I always felt like I had to be right by her side. I felt like I had to protect her. I feel like if nobody else was standing with her, then I would. And I carried that with me for a very, very long time. After the divorce, my mom was a single mother, of course. But even though she was a single mom, we were definitely not living just the three of us, me, my brother, and my mom. We live in a house with about 10 people. Yeah, 10 people. And when I say 10 people, I mean 10 people. Now, yes, in Asian families, it's very normal to be close with family, to have your relatives around, to all be involved with each other's lives. That part isn't strange, but 10 people under one roof, even by Thai family standards, that's a lot. My grandparents has 5 children, so my mom was the oldest, and then there was my aunt, my uncle, and all of us were living together in the same house. So physically, yes, we were all very close, but emotionally, it did not always feel close at all. There was a lot of tension in that house. My mom has issue with her parents, my grandparents. She had issue with some of her siblings. There were just a lot of like emotions and a lot of conflicts, a lot of things left unsaid. And growing up in that environment just felt like walking on eggshells all the time. I became very aware of people's mood, very aware of how people was feeling, very aware of whether somebody was in a bad mood, whether I need to stay quiet, whether I need to not ask too much, whether I needed to like make myself small. And I really think that's where a lot of my people pleasing started because in my head, if I was good, if I stay out of trouble, I did my homework, if I didn't cause problem, then maybe I wouldn't be a burden to anyone. So I became the good kid. I really was like I stay out of trouble. I did my homework. School was never the issue with me. Now I'm not gonna sit here and act like I was some genius, straight A, top of the class child because I was definitely not. If you went to school with me in the States now, you might have known me. Oh, Ernie, she was definitely a good student and I worked really hard. Okay, let me just say that that wasn't always part of my story. um, I was probably average at best, but I was consistent. Like I was responsible. I did what I was supposed to do. And honestly, school became my escape. Home was where I felt tension, but school was where I felt free. And another place that felt weirdly safe to me was the hospital. So my mom was a nurse. She obviously had to work a lot because she was a single mom. and like a lot. She picked up overtime, she worked weekends, she was always so busy. And I don't say this with the resentment at all. It was just the reality of things. She was a single mom trying to hold everything together. And also, on top of taking care of us, she was also taking care of our family, my grandparents, especially, because my granddad got very sick when I was very young. So, because she worked so much, sometimes she would just take me to the hospital with her. Now, mind you, this was like the 90s and the early 2000s, okay? So things were obviously different back then. I'm sure half of what I'm about to say would absolutely not fly today, but back then, I would just go to work with my mom. And honestly, I loved it. I would go to hospital just to like be there. I would wander around, explore, like sit near where she worked. I don't know, like put share togethers and nap. When I get really tired, sometimes I would just like sleep under the desk. And I remember going different floors of the hospital, just like playing like the elevators pretty much. And I don't know, man. Looking back, it sounds absolutely wild and insane. Like, girl, like where was the supervision here? Like, where was your mom? My mom was working, and because I was such a good kid, she just, I guess, like trusted me. But of the time, like it felt normal. Everybody knew who I was. I was my mom's daughter. And more than anything, the hospital felt safe to me. It felt calm compared to home. Like it felt stable. It felt organized. It felt like a place where people were doing something important and meaningful. So I loved being there. I actually remember thinking as a kid, one day I'm gonna work in a hospital. And looking back now, I think there's a big part of why I ended up working in the medical field, not just because I want to help people, which I do, but because hospital represents safety to me. They represent comfort. They represent a place away from tension that I felt at home. And that feeling stayed with me. And as much as the hospital meant something to me, school was really the place where I got to feel like a normal kid. When I look back at my childhood in Thailand, especially those school years, I mostly think of friendship. I think of laughter. I think of being silly. And I think of feeling free. I had such a good group of friends, truly, like some of the best. I really mean that. School in Thailand felt easy for me socially. People were friendly. There was warmth there. There was openness. I think a lot of that really just come down to the culture, Thai culture. But there's just a different kind of friendliness there that's shaped me a lot to who I am today. People tell me sometimes, like, they'll come up to me and say, "You really friendly." And I always appreciate that. But it's not something that I feel like I force, you know? I think that's just how I grew up, being warm to people, being kind, being nice, being open. That just felt normal to me because that's what I knew. Of course, not everybody is nice. There's definitely mean people everywhere. There's definitely cliques. And, but overall, that part of my childhood was just so good. I had so much fun, real fun. I got to laugh, got to be around people who made me feel safe and happy. I just got to be a kid. And that mattered a lot, especially because home didn't always feel emotionally easy for me. By the time I got to sixth grade, that year became one of the biggest turning points of my life. So if you don't know about school system in Thailand, it's obviously a little different. It's not like here where you have your primary, elementary, and then your middle school. It's sort of grouped together. So your first through sixth grade, it's grouped together in one single school. And then after that, you move on to the next stage of school. So it would be like a high school. So sixth grade already felt like a big deal. It already felt like a transition year. You knew something was ending and you knew something was coming. There was exam, there was pressure, conversation about the future, conversation about what school come next. So even without anything else happening, that year already felt important. But at that time, I was just having such a good time. I was with my friends. I was being silly. I was enjoying life. I've even had myself a little like school boyfriend at one point. And which honestly, it's so funny thinking back now because it was such a like cute, innocent, very much giving little sixth grade romance, know. But underneath all of that, I could feel something shifting. I mean, my mom had met a man who would later became my stepdad. And I'm not going to get too deep into that part here because that really does belong in another episode. But I remember feeling like something was brewing, something was changing. I didn't fully understand it yet, but I could feel it. You know, when life start moving before anybody has fully explained to you, especially as a child, that's what I felt like. I knew my mom was talking to someone. I knew there was conversations happening. I knew she had trouble. I knew something bigger was unfolding. I just didn't know exactly what it meant yet. And then one day, not long after I took my sixth grade exam, thinking I'm going to a different school now. I might have new friends. Like I'm just like so nervous about my future and all of that. My mom set my brother and me down and told us we were moving to America. Just like that. And what's crazy looking back now is how fast everything happened after that. So she basically gave us two choices. We could either stay in Thailand with our family, with my grandparents, with everything we've known, or we could go with her to America, start a new life. And to me, it didn't feel like I had a choice because even though I love my family, I didn't want to stay in that house. I didn't want to stay in that environment. And more than anything, I want to be where my mom was. She was still my safe place. She was still who I emotionally attached myself to. She's my mom, so of course I choose to go with her. And honestly, at first, I was excited, not scared, excited, because it felt like a fresh start. It felt like an escape. It felt like something new, In my little 12-year-old brain, I was also thinking like, wait, does that mean I don't have to stress about the entrance exam of going on like seventh grade for the next school? I don't have to deal with all that pressure. I just get to like go somewhere new. Yeah, sure, count me in. And then before I even had time to really process it, we were leaving. Like, I'm talking 2, 3 weeks after finishing sixth grade. I was on a plane to United States. I remember that night at the airport so clearly. Obviously, it was, emotional. Everybody came to say goodbye. Families, there was hugs, there was tears. I remember like my friends messaging me and I was messaging them back. That weird feeling where everything is happening so fast that your mind can't really catch up with what your life is becoming. And I remember being on the plane. That part is so clear in my mind. We flew from Thailand to Japan and then from Japan to Dulles Airport in DC. And on that very first part of the trip, I remember sitting in the middle seat, in the middle row, unable to see either of the window. There was a wall in front of us, so I couldn't see really ahead either. And I remember thinking, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know this country. I don't even know where it is on a map. I can't see out of my left. I can't see out of my right. I can't even see what's ahead of me. I had no real picture where I was going, but I was going anyway. And for the first part of the flight, I think I was still just running on adrenaline, excitement, but 2 hours in, it finally hits me. Everything is about to change. Nothing I've ever known is ever going to be the same again. And that moment has stayed with me since. Because the older I get, the more I realize How many times life have put you right back in that middle seat? You can't see what's ahead of you. You can't see what's to the left or right. You don't fully know where you're going. You don't even fully know what's waiting for you when you land. But somehow, your bag's a pack, life is moving, and you have to go anyway. How many times in life where we all end up there? How many times do we have to start over before we feel ready? How many times do we have to move forward without certainty? How many times do we have to trust ourselves without having the full picture? And that's why I think it's almost funny and ironic now that I ever doubt myself when it comes to starting over, especially starting this podcast, because I've done it before. I've done it scared. I've done it uncertain. I've done it without knowing what came next. I've done it without being able to see the full picture. So when I think about things like starting this podcast, something that took me years to begin, I have to remind myself of that little girl on that plane. She didn't know where she was going either, but she still went anyway. And I think a lot of you know exactly what I mean when I say that. Maybe your version isn't immigration. Maybe it was leaving a relationship. Maybe it was changing career. Maybe it's moving away. Maybe it's losing a version of yourself and having to rebuild. Maybe it's just waking up one day and realize your life can't stay the same. But I think all of us at one point know what it feels like to be in that middle seat with no clear view, no certainty, no full map, just a feeling that life is changing and you have to trust yourself enough to go with it. So, if you're in that season right now and you feel like you're in that middle seat of uncertain, if you feel like you can't see what's ahead of you and you're questioning whether you should take the leap, I just want to say this. Do it scared. Do it uncertain. Do it before you feel fully ready. Because sometimes that's what life asks of us. Sometimes life asks us to get on that plane before we even know exactly where we're going. And sometimes the most beautiful chapter of our lives begin that way. And I think that's where I'm going to pause for today. There's so much more to this story, obviously. And I know I cannot fit 12 years of Thailand and 17 years of America in one single episode without rushing both. So I just want to leave this part here. In the next episode, I'll talk more about what happened moving to the States and what that transition was like and everything that comes after. But for this week, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting this little podcast of mine. And as always, thank you for being you. And that's a wrap on this episode of It Only Happens to Ernie podcast. This is your host, Ernie, signing out.